This is Mark Casals, aka Marty the Moth Martinez from Lucha Underground, and you're watching the Work Shoot Wrestling Podcast. It's gonna be fun.
Welcome to episode 210 of the Work Shoot Wrestling Podcast. This is Corey Richmond, joined by Jason Brooks. Jason, another week of wrestling is in the books, and another week of COVID-19, making everybody slightly, depressed and hopefully more interested in wrestling because it's the only thing really to watch besides the NFL draft. But,
well, clearly they're not more interested in wrestling by looking at the ratings.
That is true. 1.8 for Raw, and AEW was up a little bit this week. After 2 weeks of finishing second, NXT finished in the top 50, so that's at least a good sign. But, we got the WWE financials for quarter one. We found out WWE decided that they, once again, reconsidering their schedule, which looks a little bit better. We're starting to get a little bit more understanding of where things may or may not be going in the future. But, Jason, how's everything going in the wonderful city of Chicago today?
Yeah, it's pretty good. Can't complain. Just staying inside, wearing my mask when I take the dog out. Trying to hang out on the porch today because it's actually sunny and nice out, which it hasn't been in Chicago in a while. So the weather's nice, so we'll just kind of take it for what we can. And
before I forget, be sure to check us out on Twitter at WorkShootPod. And, of course, join us our Facebook page, which we'll, of course, talk about more later on in the show. But, Jason, the big story of the week is the first quarter of WWE financials. We've been talking over the last, week or so about the 20-plus wrestlers that were fired, the 10, producers that were furloughed, and, all of the other people who unfortunately no longer have a job. And what happens? The WWE has a really good quarter numbers-wise, and it seems like if you believe the numbers, and they usually don't lie, they didn't have to fire these people.
Well, no. Here's what they said, and this is what they said in the press conference, which was interesting. And it's not a direct quote because I read it a couple days ago. Basically, Vince and whoever the interim CEO said, we cut staff, $4 million a month, which these numbers seem to be a little bit crazy, right? $4 million a month of staff we cut. So that when the new financials, it's all in anticipation of the next financial quarter.
Right.
So the next time this comes up, guys, we're going to be great. We're going to be great. We were great this time, which they did well, as they always do. And then don't worry, because we cut all these people, next quarter, we're still going to be solid, right? So that's why they cut the people. They didn't cut the people because of what just happened. They cut the people because of what's going to happen. The stock market, I'm no expert, but I know it's about speculation. And so that's kind of where they are. So, did they have to fire the people? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But they wanted to look better for their investors. So, that is what happened.
Now, we can get more into the ins and outs, but the thing I really wanted to go over with was that one of the things that we often talk over the years we've spoken about in the six years on and off of doing this podcast is the WWE Network. And the day after WrestleMania, the amount of people, their number was 2.1 million subscribers and 1.46 paid subscribers. So that meant that 640,000 free people got the network for free over the 2-day WrestleMania. And of course, the idea is you want to get those people who get the network for free to become subscribers. Who knows if anyone will continue one way or another. But I guess we did realize that there was interest when there's nothing else on TV. People cared. And, I'm guessing nobody was fooled by the idea of, go to the Fight Network, Fight TV, or the Fox app and pay, full price for this thing you get for free on the network.
Well, we knew that was going to happen. They promoted the thing 2 days before. They promoted the Fox thing 2 days before the event. So there's nothing surprising about that. It'll be interesting moving forward to see how they do things. I think it's clear they're just going to do things on the network for now. I mean, who knows? Maybe it's clear, maybe it's not clear. But I feel like they're probably going to do things on the network for now until they build up some, till things build up a little bit. And we, again, I don't think there's going to be fans in these stands for the whole year, but maybe they get a better rhythm with these empty arena shows, and they kind of, we see what happens after that. But I think holding off on doing pay-per-views, actual pay-per-views, where people are going to pay their money, $60 to watch a wrestling show, when their ratings are down, when the economy's down, I think it's not a great idea.
True. I don't disagree with you, but I do think it's interesting though that everyone with the ratings were going down as WrestleMania was coming in. They were doing a little bit over 2 million once COVID-19 had first became a major thing and it was the only live sporting event. Then the ratings kept on going down, but there was, even though like I said, interest seemed to be waning for WrestleMania, a lot of people went and watched WrestleMania on the, with the WWE Network, so there was interest. I wonder, do you think that there will be interest post-Mania, or do you think it was just nothing on TV? Now that, we had the NFL draft, we've got the Jordan special on ESPN and everything. Do you think, and we're seeing that the ratings are still taking a hit, do you think people are going to go and stay with the WWE Network, or do you think it was just a 2-day thing and maybe they'll give Money in the Bank a chance if it was in that WrestleMania window? Which
I guess it's hard for me to predict, to be honest with you, because I don't remember how things work with the network in general. Do people usually stay? Do people usually leave? I know it kind of goes back and forth, so I can't predict that really. I can say why I thought more people watched WrestleMania.
Okay.
It was a Sunday night.
Saturday and Sunday,
I should say. It was a Sunday and Saturday night, and it was an event. I mean, WrestleMania is still a thing, right? I think there was some curiosity to see how they were going to do WrestleMania as well. Like, how are they going to do it? So I think there was definitely some curiosity with that. And so, like, that's why I think more people watched it. And there's literally nothing else to watch. So I think that's where people said, okay, you know what? WrestleMania is on. I'm going to take some time and I'm going to watch this because this is an event. And then after that, you're watching Aleister Black and Apollo Crews wrestle each other for 27 minutes. So that's where those issues kind of come in.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how all this continues. Another thing that came out of this is the idea that you don't think about, remember, because it was it's quarter, it's the first 3 months of the year. So the WWE, at least for this quarter, was only truly affected by COVID for the last 3 weeks of the statement that went out. So we're not going to, like you said before, we're not going to truly see the true effect on the bottom line for the WWE until the second quarter. And remember, this first quarter was a Saudi show, which brings a ton of money, and there's going to be no Saudi show because of no travel for the second quarter, and also there might be no SummerSlam, there might be or there won't be crowds and stuff. So it's going to be
I think the first quarter was fine, and they said the first quarter was fine. This next quarter is going to be interesting, but again, they said don't worry, we fired all these people, so it's going to be better, right? So in anticipation of that, so I'm very curious to see less what the numbers are because we know they're going to be down, but more how they spin it. I think that's where things are going to be interesting. How they spin these numbers in the next quarter, but we'll see what happens. We got a couple of months for that.
The only other thing that really came out of this, the financials that piqued my interest, and I'll be honest, I mean, I own a PS4, but I don't play it as much as I used to. I know you're a huge FIFA guy, so you most likely are playing it quite a bit during the pandemic, but I know this past year's WWE 2K apparently was an utter disaster, but there will be no 2K21, and with a PS5 coming out and a new Xbox system, I don't know if you have any thoughts on it, but are you surprised that they're just totally getting out of the video game space for at least a year after the disaster of how this past year's game was received?
I am not a video game expert, so I mean, I don't know. I've never played it. Actually, I've played the 2K game a couple of times. I don't know what happened last year with 2K. I don't know why it was a disaster.
Apparently.
Yeah, I mean, so I don't know the details. I'm sure it sold well, though. That I don't know. Again, that's something that might be maybe there. I don't know, to be honest with you. Corey sometimes likes throwing these questions at me. So with the video game thing, I have absolutely no idea. I don't know anything about the video game business or anything like that. So sure, I don't know. I know AEW's like kind of thinking about doing a video game, so we'll see how all those things go. But not really sure about the video game thing.
Okay, like I said, we'll continue to look at this stuff, and I'm sure in a couple of months when the second quarter comes out, it will be super interesting to see how, like I say, no Saudi show and how everything actually goes and all these things are affected. But one of the things that did come out of all this when we spoke about the firings was we saw that heartfelt message from Drake Maverick, the former Rockstar Spud, when he was with TNA/Impact Wrestling. And one of the things that seemed really weird was the fact that he was going to be part of the interim 205 championship for the new cruiserweight, because their current champion, Jordan Devlin, is stuck overseas with, Pete Dunne and others. We thought, based on how they're now booking everything, and you saw them this past week on NXT show the whole video of his, impassioned speech. He was on the Bump, their digital show. I don't want to sound heartless, but if this isn't becoming a work and the guy's not the guy's no longer not fired, this is really bad. They're basically playing with this. I know wrestling is an evolving thing, but Jay, is this a work? Did he get his job back as a result of how much?
Well, we do this thing, right, where it's either a work or a shoot.
No.
I think it absolutely was a work. I don't think he was crying. That wasn't unless that's the greatest promo ever. I think he thought that he was fired. I think what happened is the WWE saw this. It was like, hey, we can take advantage of this. And now he might get his job back. Now, does he have his job back now? I think it's possible. I think he's a good hand, and I think they can use him, right? So I think that it was not planned for them to bring him back. I know they've also talked about Sarah Logan bringing her back. It makes sense. Her husband still works for the company. I do think she's a good hand. She's not amazing, but like, how much money does she make, right? But I think with Drake Maverick, yeah, you saw that impassioned plea, and then he ended up losing the match. So I don't really know, what that was all about. He did lose the match to Jake Atlas, which was a solid match. But no, I think that it started off for sure as a shoot. I think he really meant what he said. And it was interesting that he did wear the WWE shirt. He spoke very, very highly of the company, saying this was always his dream and everything, which I totally believed. And I mean, he's a tremendous character, right? So do I think the WWE brings him back as a result of this? Yes. Do I think that they cleared things with him to say, hey, is this okay that we do all this? Yes. Do I think as a result of all this, they bring him back? Very possibly.
Do you have him win the tournament?
No. Well, he already lost the first match.
Right. So he's got 2 matches left.
I don't see it. I don't see it. Maybe you have him go to the finals, as a result. Maybe you have him go to the finals as a result. Also, before the tournament, he wasn't going to be released before the tournament. They just decided to do this a week ago. He was originally just in the tournament. I don't know that he was going to go very far in this tournament regardless. He's not the in-ring worker of really any of the people, any of the other guys. But he's by far the best story. Now, again, the story kind of takes some shots with no crowd in the audience, but still, it's interesting, and it's still a good story, and it's good television. So I could see them absolutely pushing him where he goes against Swerve, Kushida, someone like that for the title, and loses in a really tough, hard-fought match. Because how long can they do this for? So say he loses his next match, that's it. And then how long can you keep going with this storyline of he's coming back from being fired and whatever? So they're going to try to probably get as much out of this as they can.
I mean, because like I said, it's interesting. I mean, if this hasn't gone from a work into a shoot, and this guy's basically be fired in 2 matches, this is just like, I know that wrestling, it can be uncomfortable and it is what it is, but you sit there going, what exactly are they doing here? You know, I mean,
Yeah, but he would have approved this to happen. Like this isn't being done to him. You know, even if he is going to be fired after this, well, he's already fired. Even if he's not going to be there after this, if he approved it, I mean, they're not abusing him. This is his choice to go along with the storyline. And I actually think if you think about it, and he says, "Okay, I'm going to be fired after this," they'd let me use the storyline. This is going to make him look really good to other companies too.
Sure.
When things open up too. Who wouldn't want this guy to be in their company after this? So I think it honestly, it really only helps him. It does seem awkward or whatever. We talk about this kind of reality TV era that wrestling was in from the Attitude Era. So yeah, I think that I think it can only really help him no matter what happens moving forward.
and so you brought up Sarah Logan quickly. So apparently there was talks, and from everything you read from different sites, it's pretty, you know, what's going to happen to the last minute. Sarah Logan was going to be on Raw, and then I guess things changed, but another person who was on the chopping block looked like they were going to bring her back for some sort of thing with the story. Do you think they just could play fast and loose where they may bring some people back here and there, and we're not going to know what the lines of reality are? You know?
Yes, I absolutely think that they could do that. You know, because here's the thing. They don't really need to cut anyone. They don't need to save money. But what they need to do is make the investors think they saved money. So if you cut Sarah Logan, quote unquote, but then bring her back frequently, so she's basically there all the time, and maybe they do a thing where she's not getting paid at the same rate, you know, that's absolutely a possibility, but she's still making a couple of bucks. Yeah, so I could see them doing something like that. I could definitely see them doing something like that. Who knows how many of these people come back? And again, the producers have all been furloughed. So eventually the producers are going to come back. And I do think some of the performers will come back too. I don't think that all these performers are going to be gone. End of the year, we get these tests. We're able to start things up again. I think some of these wrestlers will definitely come back.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how all of this develops and where we go from here. Like I said, if Rockstar Spud, you know, is out on his ass in 2 weeks, we'll see how all that goes. Now, talking about everything that has been going on, something that I have found interesting was right before Mania, you know, it was leaked out that Roman Reigns was not going to be on Mania because of his health issues with the leukemia. And you know, we had the replacement. We have a new champion, Braun Strowman. But I don't know, Jay, if you've noticed this, but since then, Roman Reigns has not been mentioned at all on TV. You know, and I'm just wondering, do you think that's on purpose? Is it just something that I'm thinking way too closely and I'm not paying attention? He has been. I mean,
the shows have, again, not been great. I have not heard him mentioned at all. Not at all. It's like he's not a current performer, a current wrestler in the WWE. And I thought about it because I always try to fast forward as much as I can through these shows. And so during the intro, I fast forwarded and it hit the last part of the intro where Roman Reigns does his fist thing. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh shit, I haven't heard about him in a couple of weeks. You know, and I think it goes along with something that Sean Ross Sapp reported about many WWE stars not following COVID-19 safety measures during tapings. And it was something from Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select. He's on Twitter, does a great job of reporting this stuff. He said almost no talent have been, and this is on reports that from what he's heard, almost no talent have been wearing masks around the tapings, and about 80% of staff is.
Wow.
So, I mean, that's directly from talent, right? So if you're Roman Reigns, why are you going to be there? Why are you going to show up? There'd be no reason. There's no way I would show up if I were him. No way. And they're not going to fire him. So he's only going to make his downside guarantee anyway,
which I'm
and
sure
it'd be
is quite a bit of money.
which is a ton of money, and it'd be a horrendous look if they did anything to him. A horrendous look. He's the face of the company, whatever, like it or don't like it. He's the face of the company. For them to get rid of him or to do something or put him on blast would be horrible. And we also reported at WWE a couple weeks ago. Someone reported WWE isn't sure what Reigns is doing. I don't know I'm sure they've had contact with him, but I don't know to what extent. Maybe there's some big plans to unveil him after this Bray Wyatt Braun Strowman feud. But you throw in the fact that supposedly these safety measures are not being followed to the letter of the law. Some states now are going to where you have to wear a mask whenever you walk outside. I mean, but the fact that you're in this close quarters with this many people and you're not wearing a mask, it's crazy. And I want to say one other thing. I did put this on Twitter at Work to Shoot Pod when I put that story out. One thing that I'm worried about, Corey, if 80% of staff is wearing masks and none of the wrestlers are wearing masks, or maybe a select few, let's say, this thing spreads very quickly, very easily, right? And a lot of these guys probably will be fine if they get it. But a lot of the guys will be asymptomatic. Asymptomatic meaning you don't show symptoms.
Absolutely.
And so this really, really has a chance to explode on the WWE. I know we're going to talk about the tapings too, but this really has a chance to blow up in the WWE's face.
Yeah, I mean, we have friends, and like I have no personal family members who have been who've had it, but we have mutual friends who have lost family members from COVID. I mean, we're not trying to be super negative this week, trying to be positive as much as possible, but COVID is, the major subject of our time right now, and WWE, which we've spoken about in the past, by whatever means they had to, somehow Florida is, they are super important because $18.5 million went somewhere, which we've spoken about in the past. We don't have to get into that again. But, bleach you can drink as much as you want, apparently, but whatever. But let's be honest here. If they're not going to follow the way things are supposed to be done and something really bad happens and it spreads like the plague, the worst thing that, that's going to be the worst of their problems, the idea that, they no longer have Saudi money coming in, or the fact that they don't have crowds. Yeah, WWE most likely will be fine, based on everything that ever happens. But if there's a mass pandemic going on within your company, your stock's going to take a tumble. And it's not going to matter if your last name is Khan, McMahon, Sinclair, or whatever else. You're going to be in trouble. And you can go and make this thing work out if you are smarter. And apparently, we're going to talk about in a second with the schedules. I don't know if they were pushed to go and change things a little bit, but they got to be smart what happens here. They already had one person already come down with it. Yes, we don't know officially who it was. It's not. We shouldn't be, spreading the idea of, based on claims that we may or may not have heard who it might be, but they have to be careful on what they do here, on how they move forward, So, I mean, it's in their hands, and it shouldn't be just based on the bottom dollar. And one of the things we learned from the financials Q1, as long as they have Fox money and USA Network / NBC Universal money, they're going to be fine for quite a while.
They will continue to be a very profitable company. I mean, there's no doubt about it. The problem's going to be is where's the stock going to go? That's where we could see issues. But the company is going to continue to be profitable no matter what, as long as they have those TV contracts.
Absolutely. So let's, like I said, it will be interesting the next time we actually hear the name Roman Reigns. I don't know. Like I said, maybe you're right. They're waiting to unveil him for a later time. But it will be interesting to see when and where we hear, like I said, the second biggest name in the company behind, Becky Lynch most likely right now. Said he's the biggest name in the company, and it's kind of weird we don't hear.
And by the way, she doesn't have a match on the pay-per-view. She's the second biggest star in the company. Doesn't have a match on a pay-per-view, but that's something for maybe later in the show.
Yeah, we still have another 2 weeks or 3 weeks before this next show comes up. But let's get into the big thing that's changed since the last time we were on. the idea that WWE went from three different things. One, it was going to be they were going to tape, basically 4 days in a row. Then all of a sudden, McMahon decided that nope, we're going to go live every show. We did that for a couple of days. Then all of a sudden, Ryan Satin broke the story that they're going to go to a basically every other week type of schedule on shows, which I think is a much smarter. I mean, I don't know if they should be doing shows at all anymore. I mean, they didn't would make our lives a lot harder having something to talk about. But starting this past Saturday, April 25th, they recorded 2 episodes of SmackDown, one that will air this Friday, May 1st, and one that will air the following week, May 8th, which is smart. Monday, April 27th, they're going to record 2 episodes of Raw. One will air on that night, and then they're recording the following week. Wednesday, same thing. They're going to tape 2 episodes of NXT, so they'll have a break, then they'll come back, record, have a break, so they're going to go basically almost like every 2 weeks they're going to record 2 weeks of programming until it looks like July, which I think is the very smart way to do it. I mean, we can get into a conversation somewhere down the line on the idea should they be even recording episodes anymore to begin with, based on the health idea of this all. But I mean, what's your thoughts of them at least maybe being on the wrong side of this to begin with at first, but finally, somewhat coming to their senses and, getting people in and out as much as possible?
Yeah, I mean, is 2 weeks good enough? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if 2 weeks is good enough. I almost feel like they should do a month of these. Just do a month. Like, Lucha Underground would do, and I know Impact would used to do. Just tape a shit ton of these shows at once. But I guess if 2 weeks is what you got, 2 weeks is what you're going to have to deal with. And it's better than what they were doing before. AEW is also going to start taping May 6th, it looks like. Daly's Place, since Florida has loosened up their stay-at-home orders. That's according to Pro Wrestling Sheet as well. Listen, 2 weeks is better than nothing. I still think it's not great. I still think there's a chance it blows up in their face. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think this is the writer of the plans that they had. I mean, I agree with you. The idea they mostly should have just done like 4 days of taping, get it all out of the way, and then give these people like a month's break. I mean, apparently they've already taped the matches for Money in the Bank.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's not like McMahon could go and change his mind on who's going to win between Otis and Dolph Ziggler, which is, I guess, was taped yesterday, or, Mandy Rose versus Carmella, I think is the other match for SmackDown this upcoming week, which sounds great on paper. Whoop-de-doo-dah. But I think this is the smartest idea. We'll get into AEW in 1 second, what they're doing on their end. But I wonder, though, I do think this is also a good idea where we've read for years that McMahon changes, and this happened during the Monday Night Wars, and this happened with Nitro and Raw and everywhere, where McMahon changes his mind 10 minutes before we go on air on what's going to happen. And I think this might make the WWE more disciplined in a way where he can't go and decide that, all right, we're changing this, because he's got to have a story in place for multiple weeks at a time. I think that might make the product, yes, there'll be nobody in the stands, and it will have that feel of like just, oh, great, there's nobody there. But this might help the product a little bit if he has to stay on course,
I mean, you're saying he's not going to change his mind. I don't know that that's the case at all. I think he could easily say, now we're going to tape every week again. Right? Like, I think because every 2 weeks. So he could, and that might be also, Corey, the reason why he did that. Let's do every 2 weeks. And then if we decide to go live, we can just switch it up. If you do a month of shows, it's hard to do that. So I think he did 2 weeks to keep himself open to the possibility of them doing live shows again. So the fact he might change his mind, I think, is absolutely possible. And I think them doing every 2 weeks opens them up to the possibility of them changing their mind.
Yeah, I mean, you might be right there, but like I said, I think that's one of the reasons why in the past, why NXT, when they were on the WWE Network exclusively, why those shows were so good going into takeovers, because it was they couldn't change their mind because everything was in the can, yes, ahead of time. So they had a story for a month. Everything was done, and you couldn't go and all of a sudden say, all right, this we want to do this, and this. I mean, of course, it hurts the idea if something's not working, you can't change something. But I think that it will at least keep McMahon, at least for that night. He'll have to be like, all right, this is going to be for this week and this week, and at least for 2 weeks, we'll have an idea, and we'll at least know for the following week matches ahead of time. Like we already know matches for next week. You know, a lot of weeks you have no idea what might be happening. You know, so I mean, at least that's somewhat of a good thing.
Sure. Well, the thing, and I've said this before on the show, the big thing I want to see is the improvement of these video packages. You know, they did the Jeff Hardy video package, and it was fine. It should have been longer and more detailed. I think that's really what a big focus of theirs has to be. They have to do more with video packages. They have to tell us more about who these guys are. I don't give a shit about seeing Sheamus beat some jobber in an empty arena match. Let's talk about his comeback. We know he does these workout videos. Let's learn more about that. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, let's learn more about these guys on their, you know, because putting them against a Hammernager in a match with no fan, an arena with no fans, it's just, is that getting anyone over? I just don't know. So beyond whatever they do, knowing that some match is going to come on, which I, for the most part, don't really care about. I want to learn more about these, you know, men and women. And I hope that that's where they eventually go towards. So then when we do have fans, people will figure out like who they like and who they don't like and things like that. But again, I'm going to be screaming about that until they start doing that, more of that. But Vince did say in a conference call that they're going to start doing more, that they've already started doing video packages, that their shows are still fresh because they're doing video packages. Now, I don't know if he was talking about the Boneyard match or whether he was talking about just stuff that the Jeff Hardy thing or maybe a combination, but hopefully we just continue to see more of that.
Yeah, you got a good point there. Now, you mentioned it, and I'm going to just continue on this point here. AEW is going to go and do more tapings coming up, but they are going to go live, which I want to get your point of view if you think this is a good idea or not. Double or Nothing, and then the show after Double or Nothing will be live. One of the reasons why I think people may or may not have liked WrestleMania, it was a tape show, so everything was, you know, tight. It was 3 hours, 3.5 hours a second night, and there was a less chance of things basically going wrong. Do you like the idea of AEW taking the chance of doing a live show in this environment, or do you think they should be doing a tape show for this pay-per-view and not taking any chances like WWE did with WrestleMania? What do you think?
Taped or live, who cares? They're good pro wrestlers. There'll be good matches. I mean, that Edge Orton match was edited, right? And it was, you know, it wasn't terrible, but it wasn't great. So the live to tape doesn't bother me. The idea that they're going to have a 3-hour show of just empty arena matches bothers me. Mm-hmm. So if they do some cinematic stuff, some Lucha Underground, some stuff WWE's done, that could break things up. If they just have match after match after match, I think it's going to be tough. And I think it's going to be tough to make people pay money for that too. So, you know, they don't have the WWE network, right? So they have to have people buy these shows. And with the economy and the way things are working, and, you know, wrestling fans in general have been termed to be not the most affluent fans in the world. So they are affected by this, like everybody is, but maybe a little bit more so. $60 for a pay-per-view is a lot of freaking money. Absolutely. Right? So, you know, I'm going to spend $60 to watch a bunch of empty arena matches. I don't know. They're really up against it, and it's not. I'm not blaming them. It's not their fault. They're just up against it. Hopefully they do some cinematic stuff too. They've been very, you know, ahead of the time in terms of stuff they've done with promo packages and stuff. They've been great. So hopefully they put something together. And I know they don't want to seem like they're following WWE, and I'm sure that that's a factor. But man, having 3 hours of just empty arena matches, I think is $60. I think it's just gonna be rough. I think it's gonna be rough.
I see your point there. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see where they go. I mean, I think AEW is in the best they can in the current situation.
Yeah.
They were very smart to go and tape multiple shows when they had the opportunity in Georgia. I mean, we'll be see where they go with, the TNT championship. And, and like I said, the one thing that's helped AEW and NXT and everything up to the point and Impact and everybody else, when they've done these shows, no spoilers have come out. So they still in their own way do feel fresh and interesting, even though they do feel, very sterile because of the fact that there's nobody really there.
Isn't that interesting, Corey, that backstage stuff's coming out about people not feeling safe about the coronavirus and stuff like that, and just other little things. Some report came about Vince McMahon and how he's been acting erratic backstage. Who the hell knows if that's true, right? But these things are coming out about things that are happening backstage, yet we're not getting spoilers for matches. I think that's interesting. You know what that tells me? Tells me that the wrestlers are the ones putting stuff out, but they don't want to bury the company in terms of putting out spoilers because they know they would be fired. But if they put out that, they're not taking care of the boys with the coronavirus, that's a little bit different. So I don't know if that's what's happening, but I do think it's interesting that could be the case.
Agreed. On a little bit of a lighter note, let's have a little bit of fun here for a second.
What are we gonna do? We're gonna play a game. What are we gonna play? Hopscotch? What are we gonna do?
We're gonna play. Does Vince McMahon know that he's on camera anymore? So at SmackDown over the last 2 weeks has told us that Triple H 25th anniversary. It's this big deal. Didn't know what to expect, and I'll be honest, I wasn't expecting what we got. I thought it was fun. I laughed at the fact that Triple H, understands that the fact that, he is not, people have varying opinions of him. So he didn't take himself super seriously with this 25th anniversary. I thought it was done really well. It was a cluster F, as we like to say on this show at times. I thought the stuff with, Stephanie and all the stuff with, the little bits with, Ric Flair, with, saying, don't let him super kick you, and then calling back up again with the crying. So a lot of the simple touches were good. I thought that the company realized that there was a lot of stuff to be made fun of. I thought it was a little weird shot at, what Vince was saying with the whole entire Bailey, this is your life segment, and the Katie Vick thing. I thought those were kind of odd, a little bit odd. But I thought the segment worked. It was a cluster, but Jay, what do you think of, like I said, Triple H, once again, not taking himself too seriously and, something different, not just like, this, you're the greatest thing where ever, and actually taking a jab at it.
I think it's two different things, right? I thought the Triple H Shawn Michaels part with Stephanie calling, I thought it was funny. It was a cluster, but I thought it was funny. I think the Vince thing was like bizarre. Like, I didn't really know what that was that I watched with Vince. He was rambling. He didn't make a lot of sense. That was strange to me. I thought the other part was more funny and entertaining than anything. They were, having Stephanie, Sean said something and then Stephanie called and he was talking to her on the phone. It was fun. It was funny. I will agree with you. And listen, and I like that they made fun of the fact there was no one in the stands for him. And listen,
words for you.
Listen, you could say what you want, right? Shawn Michaels and Triple H clearly have been friends for years and years. Clearly, they have tremendous chemistry, and that hasn't gone away. That hasn't not gone away. So they had really good chemistry. Shawn Michaels is very entertaining still. They work together in NXT, so they're still together a lot. So yeah, no, it was very entertaining. It was a cluster. I guess the only thing I will say is they had his 25th anniversary, and is a little bit of a bummer because it was not really a coronation of anything. If it was funny, but then ended a little bit more serious, it was just all kind of a mess, and then just kept going. It didn't come to a crescendo at any point. So I'd say that'd be the only thing I think that was kind of an issue there. And the Vince stuff was just bizarre. Like, I didn't know what he was talking about, Corey. Like, I didn't understand. Like, he wasn't being coherent in what he was saying. It was just very, very bizarre. But yeah, no. Was it entertaining? Yes. Was it a cluster F? Yes. Those things are not mutually exclusive. So, it was good. It was fun. I laughed, probably more entertaining than anything else that was on that show. It was not a great show.
Yeah, I mean, it was a good change.
Other than the Sasha match, the Sasha Bailey or Sasha Lacey Evans match, they worked hard, but other than that, it was a pretty weak show. Other than the Triple H thing.
Yeah, like I said, and we always say, and you say this more than I do because I think I take things way more seriously than you do at times. But sometimes we just need to be able to laugh and remember that wrestling is supposed to be fun. I mean, we sit there and we try to take a look at a lot of times the outside view of wrestling and what's going on, because a lot of times what's going on outside of the ring is more interesting that's going on.
Yeah, but Corey, I really feel like a 25th anniversary. Forget about it's supposed to be fun. You always that's supposed to be fun. There are some things that are fun. Mm-hmm. Did that feel like celebrating this guy's career for 25th year? Like, it's fine to make fun for a little bit, but don't you want to get serious a little bit? Like, I think that's what Vince was supposed to do. And then he was off the rails. I like the fun. I like the entertainment. I think wrestling should be more of that. I always felt that way. But at some point, we're celebrating this guy being a performer for 25 years. Should we maybe get a little serious? I don't know. Maybe it's just me. But ending the segment talking about Bailey and Katie Vick, I don't really get it.
I think, though, I'm not disagreeing with you, but I think one of the key things in there was when, I know it's saying as a joke, but like what Shawn Michaels said, what do you remember from my 25th anniversary and everything? I think there's a difference when people think about Triple H, and maybe this is my bias also. I don't think of Triple H on the level of an Austin, a Rock.
He's not.
Undertaker.
He's not. He's not. He's absolutely not.
But I think that's the thing. The idea of if he wasn't the number 2 in the company, wasn't married to the boss's daughter, wasn't the head of NXT, we would not be getting a 25th anniversary of Triple H. And I think he realizes the perception that he has, and he understands that if he went and if this was giving the way that they treat, a Ric Flair, where this giving him the big moments and the idea of all of the praise, it would be looked upon as this isn't deserved. Because, as we always say, the Mount Rushmore of guys, he's never going to be on that. He was even in the Attitude Era, all these different times. He might have been the guy who was the 12-time champion, but I think the fans have never thought of him as a guy who deserves to be in that conversation. And I think it would have turned off, yes, there's nobody in the audience, but I think that would have turned off fans if it was just pushed down our throats, the idea of Triple H, yes, the guy who runs the company, the guy who's married, to the boss's daughter. We're going to go and praise this guy who, like I said, we never thought was as good as the other guys who he was just in the ring with, So, I think it would have felt dirty to the fans, and I think he understands that. And I think it was right for him. Like I said, if it was Shawn Michaels or The Rock or someone for a 25th anniversary, I think it would have been a much different type of presentation. And I think it works because Triple H understands his role.
Yeah, all right. I mean, I'll give it to you. I thought it's fine for it to be funny for a little bit, but I think they should have brought it home, and I don't think they brought it home. I think it went even more off the rails.
All right. Another thing that, before we get back into a little bit more serious, just want to give a little bit of praise on something we don't usually talk about other companies, unfortunately, besides AEW and WWE nowadays. But NWA Power was one of those companies that has been majorly affected with their momentum because of COVID. And they put up a 25-minute video on Tuesday in regards to one of their characters. Oh, crap. I just forgot. Camille, thank you. Basically, her story of being brought in as the heavy for Nick Aldis and ending with her first match and building up to what might be coming with her. Thought it was a really well done, 25 minutes worth of material telling her story and what could be next. I mean, She's not exactly the greatest in the ring, but I thought it was a nice character piece. And I think as long as we don't have episodes coming out, of new material, them doing story pieces like that will help, I think, the average fan who might stumble on by accident, who's like maybe watching AEW and the next video coming up is NWA Power. I think these type of videos are going to help keeping them at least in the moment and, help the product. And I thought it was well done.
Yeah. I mean, I enjoyed it. I think that was something they were planning on doing, obviously, before everything hit and taping stopped. As you said, Camille is no Ricky Steamboat, but I think her character is interesting. I think the video package was well done, and we'll see where they go with it. I think they've really done a good job with her. I think she's probably, top 5 built character on the show. Obviously, they're building up to Thunder Rosa going against her, who's fantastic, as we've talked about. And hopefully she can carry her to a good match. So we'll kind of see what happens with that. Moving forward will be the interesting thing, right? So NWA has done these things where they've shown old shows. They were going to show NWA Superpower. It was going to be like a longer show, but they didn't because it was really a build-up to the Crockett Cup, which they didn't want to do. So I don't know how many shows they have like in the can. Mm-hmm. But it'll be interesting to see if do they show one of those matches on Tuesday or a match on another day, and how they decide to do it, because they really were building good momentum. They really, really were. And I think you think about companies that you feel bad for, that's the company, right? Really building itself back up from the ground up, really becoming popular among a lot of fans. And now the momentum was just completely halted. So I don't know what they do. I don't think they can tape things with fans, but if they're in Georgia, my buddy's in Georgia, and I talked to him the other day. He was at a brewery. He was in a couple of Ubers. He had people at his house. So they opened up barber shops. I mean, if there's anything you should not do when you have coronavirus, it's get a haircut, go to a bowling alley, and get a massage. Right? You're in very close quarters with human beings, but Georgia didn't care. So I don't know how that's going to affect things. Maybe they start to have tapings too. Corey, I know you said they said something at the end of the Camille package where it says May 2020. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that means they're going to have new shows, because usually they do a good job of really promoting, hey, we're going to have a show, So I kind of don't know what that means moving forward, because May's in 5 days. But it was a good package for sure. I'm really bummed about the NWA. I mean, Corey, it was one of the things I looked forward to most all week. Wrestling-wise, I'd say behind NXT and AEW, it was by far the thing I looked forward to most all week. It was you talk about a fun show. You talk about wrestling being fun. That's a fun show. It brought me back to being an old school fan, and it was a fun show. And, it's been taken away. So hopefully it'll come back in some capacity soon. Agreed.
So we did a couple of uplifting stories. Let's get back down to our usual sad world. No. So over the last day or two, a story has come out which we really don't know a lot of facts about, but I think we have to at least give a little idea of what's going on here. Basically the number 2 guy, at least pushed wise, in NXT storyline right now, the Velveteen Dream, guy who came out of the last season of Tough Enough. Basically, I guess Wrestling Reddit. There's a story out there that apparently Velveteen Dream said he was hacked, but also that he may have been sending pictures to underage girls. We don't know if any of this is true. There's apparently, I guess.
Dream absolutely denies it on Twitter, has absolutely denied it, has said he's contacting the authorities. So that's very, very important that we throw that out there. And this is also wild speculation that there's no evidence of currently. So that's all very important to know.
Right. So, and until we know more information, it's really hard to go and give a true opinion on this. But the one thing I wanted to bring up quickly on, if you're the WWE, right now they're building towards the idea of, I don't know if he's going to win the title, but him versus Adam Cole for the NXT title. If you're the WWE, until you know more, and especially the fact that you're taping shows in advance and you can go and hold off on this title match, what do you do here? Do you go and do an injury angle to get more time to find out more information? Do you go and just go full steam ahead and say,
here's the thing. Here's the thing. We talked about it pre-show, and thinking about it now. Here's the thing: you keep going the way things are going because there's no evidence out there. If it came out that he did, you fire him immediately. And that's it. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts, right? We know that Lars Sullivan was in, gay porn. That's different. He was in the pornography. Nothing wrong with that. Gay porn, whatever. That's your deal. 2 consenting adults. That's fine. You send pictures to children. That's it. That's it. He's fired. 100%. There's no coming back from that. Yeah. So I need you because there's no evidence. I think it'd be really unfair to do something to him if he is completely innocent of this. I think it'd be really, really unfair. And there's also no audience in there anyway, so no one and a lot of people don't really know what's going on. I think you continue things as you were. There's no reason to stop things. If something comes out, if there's more evidence, if whatever, then you make a determination then, but you keep pushing forward with the plans. They can always change things up and decide to do something else. I think you continue with where things are going. Because here's the thing, if it's found out that this happened, you're going to fire him immediately anyway.
See, I guess I'm slightly different on this. I would play the safe route here, and because there's no audience and there's no need to go and do this match right away, and you're filming 2 weeks of TV, I guess on Wednesday, I think is the date we said, the next time they film for NXT. I would do, similar to what you did this week with Finn Balor at the beginning of the show.
So you're going to totally halt your plans for a TV show based off an accusation on Wrestling Reddit? What are we doing here? Like, we're going to totally change what we're doing for our wrestling product based on Wrestling Reddit? That seems ridiculous. Does that not seem ridiculous? Now, if he was arrested for it, that's different. This is someone on Reddit who came out with some random thing. That seems insane to me. Then just fire him. What are we doing here? Or don't have him on the show. If you're gonna do this, don't have him on the show. But to me, that still seems ridiculous. We have no evidence of anything. It's wild speculation.
I'm not saying no, but hold on a second. You're a publicly traded company. You're doing all these things for the stock to make sure that the stock's going to stay where you are. You have a taping later on this week, which is going to tape until basically episodes that will air, and your next time to air after the 2 weeks will be May 20th. You don't have to have I don't think anybody's dying to see this match in the next 2 weeks. You go and you do an injury angle, which I think will, and if nothing happens as this, you'll even make, I think, the dream even bigger at the idea he's coming for revenge. You could have him off TV for the equivalent of 2 weeks. And during these 2 weeks, you get more information. You find out this is a bunch of BS. And then, he comes back, beats the living shit out of the Undisputed Era. And that's how, and then he gets his title match.
We might not know anything in 2 weeks. Right? Like, if this is an investigation, investigations take time. We might not know anything in 2 weeks. And then, let's go another 2 weeks. Well, let's go another 2 weeks. Just do what you're going to do. If it's found out that he did it, they're going to look bad anyway. Yeah. Like, no matter what, it's going to be Velveteen Dream, whatever his real name is, Patrick Clark, who's employed by the WWE, is a pedophile. Like, no matter what happens, he could be NXT champion pedophile or NXT performer pedophile, but it'll still be pedophile and it'll still make the company look bad. So to me, like, what are we doing here? It's going to look bad no matter what, whether he's off TV. It won't show that. When you read the Wall Street Journal, when you read, CNN, when you read Fox, God, I don't know why anyone would want to read that, but whatever you're reading, right? Yeah. It's still going to say Patrick Clark, pro wrestler who wrestles for the WWE, whether he was on TV this week, last week, or the week before. Okay. So it's still going to look bad. So keep going with what you're going with. If Patrick Clark says, hey, like Velveteen Dream says, I did not do this. 100% did not do this. This is not anything I've done, blah, blah, blah. Now, as a company, do you sit down with them and talk to them about it? Yes, 100%. That's their job. They have to figure out, hey, what is this accusation? What the hell's going on? He says, flatly denies it. Nothing happened. Absolutely not. Okay, we're going to take you for your word. And then if he, it's like what happened with, it's a different situation, but with Kareem Hunt, right? Said that he abused this woman, lied to the Chiefs. They released him, right? So we'll see what happens. It's a very sensitive thing. I agree. But I think once you start setting precedent that we're going to do things based off of accusations on Reddit, then like where the hell is this going to go? Anyone can say anything about anyone, and the WWE's got to make some, premature judgment on them. I just think it's, and listen, I think you guys have figured out where my political leanings are, right? But I still think we gotta slow down a little bit. So
I'm not saying you're wrong.
That's where I'm at.
All right, so last subject of the day.
No, one more subject. I know you want to talk about Dark Side of the Ring. I want to talk about one other thing. And
I bring up things out of nowhere. Here we go. This is
I put it in the chat, and Corey doesn't read the chat. But the Nia Jax thing. Did you see that move? She could have broke her neck. Like she could have broke. She is
dangerous.
Such a sloppy worker. And listen, I'm not a pro wrestler. You're not a pro wrestler. We've never been in a ring. I don't want to act like I'm I know we talk about pro wrestling, right? But it's like, people analyzing the draft who have never watched the draft or who've never picked a player or never scouted players. We are still commenting on things we've seen. We've been wrestling fans for 30 years. We have figured out whether someone's sloppy or not, right? That was horrible. That was terrible. And you talk about disciplining someone or whatever. Does the WWE have to have a conversation with her? The woman had a concussion 4 months ago. A bad concussion. She's had concussion problems in her career in the past. She's 120 pounds. The other woman's 250 pounds and throwing her around like a sack of potatoes. One of the best women wrestlers in the world, who's very careful, a true professional, a great in-ring worker. And then she's got this woman throwing her around without any regard for her safety. I forget who talked about what pro wrestler talked about this, but they talked about this in the past. They're like, I am in your hands, right? Like, I'm trusting you because you can do whatever you want to me when we're, suplexing and stuff like that. I am trusting you to protect me as much as you possibly can. And we have this woman throwing her into the bottom turn. It's just, I don't know. I don't get it with Nia Jax. She seems like a nice person. I just think, and I guess now she's using that supposedly to put over her feud with Ronda Rousey. I don't know, man. I think it rubs me the wrong way. We've seen this time and time again with her doing sloppy stuff in the ring with her, and it's put women over. It put Becky Lynch over, obviously, when she cold cocked her. So it's helped her in some ways, but I really, really just think that it's I don't know. I mean, she's a true heel. We can say that. I mean, she's a true heel, but it's I just have a really, really big problem because now we're not kids anymore. We're older. We see the effects, the tolls that injuries take on these people's body. We're seeing all these wrestlers die, right? Yep. And we've seen all these wrestlers die and have concussion problems. And I don't want to see this happen to performers and wrestlers that we enjoy watching. Obviously, they're going to retire. Things are going to happen. But you don't want to see them getting injured based off sloppiness of another performer, So I don't know. I just really had a big problem with it, and it disgusted me. And, take accountability. And if you're the WWE, do you do something? Do you take accountability? Because obviously they're pushing her to the moon. And this is going to be some Becky Lynch match with her, I would assume, at some point. But is this a case where you say, you know what? No more push. No more push until you learn how to work with these women.
It's really interesting. You could hear from the video that they've put out that Kyrie's saying, you could clearly hear her say, "I'm not ready." Basically, say, "I'm not ready for the move yet to happen." And like you said, you're there. It's basically like it's a performance, which actually it is, where you have to rely on the other person. And the idea that Nia Jax has injured multiple people. I mean, it's not our place out there, especially with what's been going on with all the people who've been fired, last week. But is it time? And yes, would AEW or one of these other companies not be smart within 2 seconds to pick her up because she does have potential, most likely to be a huge star? But the time for WWE to cut bait with her? I mean, one of the major things that have come out over the years is the idea is she pushed for one reason only, because she's cousins with The Rock. I mean, how much is enough? I mean, I have a hard time saying someone should get fired. But if you're going to continue to hurt people, it might be time to go and say, maybe we should not fire Dina Purrazzo and Sarah Logan. Let's bring the two of them back, use them, and Nia Jax. It's time for you to go sit on the sidelines for a little while and maybe work on the indies and have to learn how to do what you're doing better. I mean, Nia Jax, apparently, she's one of the nicest people in the locker room. I mean, Dina Purrazzo did, a quote-unquote shoot interview with who we've mentioned multiple times in this podcast, with Sean Sapp this past week, and she said her first match and her last match was against Nia Jax, and said it's one of the nicest people you'll ever meet. And
I've heard that too.
But at some point, isn't good enough. And if you're going to hurt people, this isn't the 1940s and 1950s where this was the toughest man in the gym was the guy who was going to be pushed. You also have to be the safest person in the gym. And if you can't rely on the person you're working with, maybe you shouldn't be in the biggest company in the world, and nobody said you should be fired, but maybe it's time for you to go back down to the Performance Center and figure out what's not working.
Yeah. And she's had time, right? Like, she was injured, and so she had time. I don't know what you do. I don't think they should fire her. Because I think if she does things maliciously, then I think that's different. I don't think she's doing this maliciously. But, she goes injuring Becky Lynch again. It's going to be bad. So they need to figure something out with her. I don't know. I'm not going to pretend to know exactly what to do. But I think a conversation needs to be had with her. And we'll kind of see where that all goes to.
All right. Last subject of the week. Dark Side of the Ring. This was an episode that I'm not sure.
This was a depressing one. Good God. Listen, Corey loves happy things. It's been a rough season. It's been a rough season. No, that was a real rough one.
I mean, this was actually supposed to be an episode, a season 1 episode, but I guess the episode count was more than they initially had thought they were going to get. So this was moved to season 2. I recently read. I thought it was another very good episode. I thought it was a very interesting subject matter. Would have loved to heard, maybe a couple more interviews with other people. I mean, we had the stuff with Rick Martel from the older interview, but super sad story. Didn't realize how big of a character Dino Bravo was. Basically, they said like the Canadian Hulk Hogan. It's interesting, for an average fan who doesn't know the business and hasn't been following this forever. I think these shows are super interesting look inside the business. But I often wonder, because I was listening to Dave Meltzer talk about the episode, and every time he talks about these episodes, he says they're good, but I haven't learned anything new. And for me and you, who we grew up in the '80s and didn't, sort of like Dino Bravo as this like not an extra, but he was a
mid-level guy. He was
right.
He was a mid-talent guy.
It was it's interesting to learn more about him, and it's one of those stories you're never going to know exactly why he died, but I think we got a lot of interesting.
I mean, I think we pretty much know.
I mean, say like
I think it's pretty clear.
Yeah, he screwed over the wrong guys. I mean, basically,
yeah. No, it was a well, Meltzer's thing is different, right? He's on the inside.
Historian,
I think this is these are the perfect documentaries for people like you and I, who grew up watching these people and heard these stories, but maybe didn't know all the details of these stories.
Right.
I didn't even know Dino Bravo died, to be honest. I remember it wasn't like a a big story to me. The Bruiser Brody story was like a big story. I remember.
Legendary story, right?
Yeah. So like this was not a legendary story. It also shows you how tough these guys in the 80s had. I mean, right? They could just do documentaries on every wrestler in the 80s, basically.
Yeah.
Right? The Mr. Perfect one. I really want them to do a Mr. Perfect one, a Rick Rude one. But it's all like really, really sad stories. So, and I think that's one thing, Austin always talks about. It's not what you earn, it's what you save. Yeah. And I think you see these guys now, like when they've showed the Hardy Boys and like their house and like the Young Bucks and the house they live in. And like these guys, I think are making a lot more money. And I think they're probably taking care of their money a little bit better too. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's definitely a factor. And Dino Bravo obviously did not do that. He made a bunch of money, bought a big giant house, and then his contract was up and he didn't know what to do with himself. So it's just a real sad story about taking care of your money too and having to stoop to working for the mob and that kind of, pride of like, I need to do for my family and whatever, when it's like, hey, they don't need you to have a big house. They just need you to have a roof over their heads anywhere, and they need you around. So yeah, just a real sad story. Him getting caught up with the mob and all the things that happened there. But also just another, interesting take on the business. I didn't know that he was a star of Canada. I had no freaking idea about that he was the Hulk Hogan in Canada. So that perspective was really, really interesting. But again, I do think these documentaries should be probably an hour and a half, 2 hours rather than an hour. I do think we kind of what Meltzer was saying, where there's nothing he didn't know from this. I do think these things are sped up a little bit too much. I would have liked to have heard more about Dino Bravo when he was, wrestling in Canada, and more about how Vince McMahon came in and took those wrestlers, Jacques Rougeau and those guys. I would have really enjoyed learning more about that. But again, just a quick kind of thing. So anyway, but it was a very good episode. The poor daughter, oh boy, it was brutal for her and the wife. It was a rough episode looking back for them. But I really commend those people for agreeing to be interviewed for that, because it was definitely, she lost her dad at like a really, really young age.
6 years old, yeah.
Yeah, so it's just really, really brutal. So,
and that's the thing that you learn from like from the Macho Man documentary on season 1 and Benoit and all these things. Yes, you're learning about the wrestlers and the tragic stories, but you also remember the people who get left behind on these awful stories, like Vicky Guerrero and everyone else, where you think about, they had these great wrestlers that we remember from our childhood and all the great things, but there's that other side of the people who have to go on with their lives, in the real life, there was a person who called these people dad and, brother and sister and everything. And, they have to move on with their lives without, these key people who were super important to them.
Yeah, I agree.
Next week, we've got D. David Schultz, who I'll be honest, I know nothing about. I don't think I know
literally nothing. He
basically, I guess, slapped the hell out of a reporter when he said that wrestling, I guess, was fake or something. John Stossel that's how only thing I really know about him. So this will be the one episode.
You know more than me.
Yes, I mean that's the one thing.
I did hear that he was like a badass, right? That's the one thing I think. Yeah.
Like I said, it'll be interesting to see, and we'll talk about that next week. We'll talk about the 2 semifinal matches, most likely from AEW's TNT tournament. More on, I guess, what's going on with the WWE as they continue to build towards Money in the Bank, and whatever else goes on in the wrestling industry. And hopefully we have some more clarity on the Velveteen Dream situation. But Jason, let's do a couple of quick plugs before we get out of here.
Yeah, the biggest thing for you guys, we're really trying to get some reviews on iTunes. So check us out, Shoot, WRKD, Shoot Wrestling Podcast. If you're listening or watching, you probably know that already. But the biggest thing is on iTunes, please leave us a rating or a review. 5 stars would be amazing. And write a review too. And it could be anything. You could write anything you want. And as long as it's not completely filthy or racist or whatever, we will read it on the air.
Filthy's okay. Racist, not so much.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll read it on the air. So write a review, 5 stars, maybe have it be clever, have it be funny. it could maybe not even be about us. but no, 5-star review. We'll read it on the air on iTunes. Work Shoot Wrestling Podcast. Check us out on Facebook. Our Facebook page is also Work Shoot Wrestling Podcast. I did change the name of our Facebook page today. And on Twitter, where I am most active. Corey's most active probably on the Facebook. I'm most active on Twitter at Worked Shoot Pod, WROKED Shoot Pod. Just interact with us. Let us know. We've gotten some new followers this week, which is great. Thank you, everyone, for following us. Check us out on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, Work Shoot Wrestling Podcast.
And, of course, every week, continue to check out, which we very much appreciate, You Don't Know Jackie podcast. And during this pandemic, we're continuing to put out content every Wednesday. And we hope to have Jason back on again, which he was on one of our better episodes of this season, killing Corey for being, what Corey is. But Jason, as we do every week, the final word is yours.
I think we're done here. See ya.